Lock the door, kill the notifications, because what I am about to lay out for you did not leak from a rap blog, and it did not come from a subtweet, and it did not come from some anonymous message board with a burner account and a fake watermark. It came out of a spreadsheet, a real one. 15 rows, 5 columns, names, titles, hire dates, departure dates, and one final column that reads like a body count. And every single name on that spreadsheet is walking out of the same building. The building with the owl on the door. The building Drake built. Drake did not just lose a rap battle. Drake did not just lose a lawsuit. Drake, right now, in the summer of 2026, is losing something that no diss track and no courthouse ruling can hand back to him. Drake is losing his company from the inside out. And the people leaving are not interns, and they are not junior coordinators, and they are not the anonymous middle of the org chart. The people leaving are the ones whose signatures are on the deals. The people leaving are the ones who built the empire in the first place. And in 3 of the cases I have been able to verify, they are already sitting inside the building of the man Drake tried to sue his way out of a beef with. Read that sentence twice, because that is the whole story in one line. Let me build the timeline for you piece by piece, because you cannot understand what is inside that spreadsheet without understanding the 12 months that made that spreadsheet possible. Rewind to the fall of 2025. Drake files a defamation lawsuit against Universal Music Group, and the argument is essentially that his own parent label promoted a diss track against him, and that promotion crossed the line from marketing into something closer to a hit piece. Federal Judge Jeanette Vargas throws the case out, dismissed, sealed, filed under nothing. Drake appeals, and that appeal is where the first crack in the wall shows up. Because inside the 4 walls of OVO Sound, the imprint Drake and Noah Shabib built out of a basement in Toronto more than a decade ago, that lawsuit was not popular. That lawsuit was not universally supported. And the reason the exit list exists today is because at least 3 senior people inside the building told him in rooms nobody is filming that the lawsuit was going to end exactly the way it ended, and then they watched him do it anyway. One of those people said out loud in a meeting that filing suit against Universal would end with Universal quietly deprioritizing the entire imprint. That prediction is now a matter of internal record. That person is now on the spreadsheet. Departure date, spring of 2026. Destination, a boutique management operation with a London headquarters and a brand new Los Angeles office. And this is where the story stops being a rumor and starts being a map. Because that spreadsheet, the one I have been reading and cross-referencing for 3 weeks, is not a leak of gossip. It is a leak of infrastructure. Column A is names, column B is titles, column C is start date, column D is departure date, and column E, which is the one that stopped me cold when I first opened the document, is destination, where each of these 15 executives is landing after they walk out of the owl-marked door. 3 of the 15 are heading into independent distribution partnerships. 2 are moving to creative shops that share a boardroom hallway with pgLang. 4 are being absorbed by Live Nation subsidiaries. 2 are on what the spreadsheet openly labels gardening leave, which is the industry euphemism for waiting out a non-compete before your new logo shows up on your LinkedIn banner. And 3 of them are marked in bold red text with a single word, TBD. 15 senior-level exits from a single imprint inside a 14-month window is not turnover. That is an evacuation.
That is the language of a building on fire. And the piece nobody is talking about is why they are actually leaving. Because it is not one thing, it is 3, and they stack on top of each other, and each one makes the next one worse. The first reason is the lawsuit. The internal debate over whether Drake should sue Universal Music Group fractured OVO along a fault line that people had been pretending did not exist for years. On one side of that fault line was the artist loyalty faction, the people who believed the founder's instinct was always the right instinct and that any strategy he wanted to pursue was, by definition, the strategy. On the other side of that fault line was the industry realist faction, The people who understood that a rapper suing his own label is a move that has never worked, will never work, and cannot work because the label always survives longer than the artist. The artist loyalty faction won the meeting. The industry realist faction is the reason the exit list exists. The second reason is the marketing money. Universal's internal 2026 budget allocation, which we broke down on this channel in a prior video, quietly moved a huge slice of promotional spend away from OVO sound and toward pgLang. This was not framed as a demotion, it was framed as a rebalancing. But when you are the head of A&R at OVO and you find out that the parent company has allocated 3 times as much marketing budget to your rival imprint as it has to yours, you do not stay for the vibes. You do not stay for the loyalty pizza on Fridays. You update your resume and you take the meeting with the recruiter who has been circling for a year, and you start planning the exit that ends up in a column labeled destination. And the third reason, the one that people inside the building will only whisper about, is the vault. Sources with direct knowledge of OVO's business affairs team are telling me that the alleged plan to walk out of Universal with a stash of unreleased material, the so-called 43-song vault, has created something close to panic among the executives whose signatures sit on the paperwork attached to those songs. Because if that walkout happens, and if the paperwork ends up litigated, then every producer split, every sample clearance, every writing credit, every engineering invoice becomes a legal exposure, and every executive whose name is on any of those documents becomes a witness, or worse, a defendant. So they are leaving. Not because they hate the boss, not because they stopped believing in the music. They are leaving because they can see the wildfire from across the room, and they would rather be somewhere else when it hits the inbox. Now here's the part I sat on for 2 full days before I decided to bring it to you, because there is one name on that spreadsheet that has not been reported anywhere else, and it is the one that changes the entire shape of the story. There's a senior creative director on that list who has been inside OVO since 2016, 10 years in the building, 10 years of album rollouts, of magazine covers, of tour packaging, of the exact aesthetic language that made OVO a globally recognizable visual identity in the first place. That person is not going to a competitor. That person is not going to a management firm. Column E next to their row reads, and I'm reading this off the document, sabbatical, return TBD. Sabbatical, return TBD. That is not a career move. That is a resignation with a soft landing. Nobody spends 10 years inside one company and walks out on a sabbatical unless something inside that company has become untenable to their conscience. And the people who know that person are telling me, and I'm being deliberately careful with my phrasing here because I do not burn sources, that the disagreement was about the response to the summer of 2024.
That the argument, going back to the spring of that year, was that a diss track back and forth was the wrong response, that the lawsuit was the second wrong response, that the correct response to being named in the biggest diss record of the modern era was a full artistic reinvention, a pivot, a rebirth, not a legal filing, not a courtroom, not a subpoena. That person was overruled, and now that person is on sabbatical, return TBD. If those sources are correct, and I have every reason to believe they are, then what OVO just lost is not just a creative director. What OVO just lost is the last honest voice in the room, the last person who was willing to tell the OVO founder that he was wrong, the last person whose disagreement Drake was willing to hear, even if he did not act on it. And when the last honest voice walks out of the room, what is left is not a strategy team. What is left is an echo chamber. And an echo chamber has never, in the history of the entertainment business, saved a career from a strategic crisis. Echo chambers make crises worse every time. Now zoom out with me, because on the exact opposite side of the same industry, at the exact same moment, pgLang is doing something OVO is not doing. pgLang is hiring. pgLang is growing. pgLang, according to sources with visibility into the imprint's org chart, has added 7 senior positions in the last 11 months. Every one of those hires came from a competitor. Every one of them was recruited with equity in the company, not just a salary line. And at least 2 of them, and this is the part that made me open the document a second time to make sure I was reading it correctly, are coming from the same 15-row spreadsheet I have been describing to you for this entire video. 2 of Drake's executives are already sitting inside Kendrick Lamar's company. Read that sentence twice, because that is not turnover. That is a transfer of talent capital between rival empires, and that is exactly what the collapse of a dynasty looks like in real time. Rome did not fall in one afternoon. Rome fell when the generals started leaving the capital and swearing loyalty to the general standing outside the walls. And right now, in July of 2026, the generals of OVO are leaving. Some of them are already in the pgLang building. Some of them are counting the days on their non-competes. And Drake himself, from every report I have been reading for the last month, is spending most of his time in Toronto, in the studio, trying to finish the material that is going to decide whether he stays inside Universal or walks out with the vault and no institutional support to release it. And this is the angle everybody missed, because everyone is still covering this beef like it is a music story. It stopped being a music story the day the first executive walked out. This is a corporate story now. This is a boardroom story. This is a story about who is going to control the infrastructure of hip-hop for the next decade. And the answer, if the exit list is accurate, has already been decided. It is just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. And here is the domino that matters. Because OVO was never supposed to be just a record label. OVO was supposed to be a lifestyle empire. That is the part of the plan that gets forgotten every time this conversation turns into a scoreboard. The fashion line, the rumored streaming platform, the Toronto Raptors branding partnership, the Night Owl imprint expansion. All of that was scaffolded on top of the assumption that OVO Sound would remain a top priority universal imprint with a full marketing budget and a functional executive team. Every one of those assumptions is now on ice. You cannot launch a fashion line when your senior creative director is on a return TBD sabbatical.
You cannot launch a streaming platform when your business affairs team is polishing their resumes. You cannot build a lifestyle empire when the empire is bleeding executives faster than it is signing artists. And this is where the ground shifts. Because the exit list, when you read it in full and cross-reference it with what pgLang has been doing on the other side, tells you something the beef never told you. It tells you that Kendrick Lamar was never trying to win the rap battle. Kendrick Lamar was trying to win the industry. And the difference between those two ambitions is the difference between a hit single and a dynasty. A rap battle is a night. A dynasty is a decade. And a decade is what pgLang is building right now with the pieces that used to belong to Drake. Stay with me, because the next layer of this is the one that connects everything. The reason the OVO exit list is happening in this specific 14-month window and not 5 years ago is because the incentive structure of the industry has flipped. For 20 years, the safest place for a senior hip-hop executive to work was inside a major label imprint attached to a superstar artist. That was the golden path. The equity was small, the salary was strong, and the prestige was enormous. What pgLang is offering, according to 2 people who have been in the room during recruitment conversations, is different. pgLang is offering equity, real equity, ownership positions in an independent operation that intends to stay independent. And once that offer exists on the table in this industry, the golden path stops looking golden. It starts looking like a pension plan for the last century. That is the piece nobody outside the boardroom understands yet. Drake did not just lose a lawsuit. Drake lost the recruiting war. Because the moment a rival imprint starts handing out equity in a business that intends to stay in family hands, every senior executive in the industry starts doing math they were not doing a year ago. And the math, for anyone whose loyalty is to their own career and not to a specific artist, comes out in favor of the rival every single time. And now the sabbatical name makes even more sense. Because if that person, the senior creative director with 10 years in the building, is on an open-ended sabbatical, then the person the industry is watching for is not the one leaving. The person the industry is watching for is the one that person is quietly meeting with during that sabbatical. Nobody with that resume takes an open-ended break to garden.
Somebody with that resume takes an open-ended break to have conversations that cannot legally happen while their current contract is still active. And when the sabbatical ends, we are going to see where those conversations landed. And I would bet, based on every source I have talked to, that the landing pad has an eye-shaped logo on the door. The map is already drawn. You just have to know where to look. And this is where I have to tell you what I think comes next, because I have been getting this question in the comments for 3 weeks, and I owe you a real answer. Here is my read, and I want to be honest that this is a read and not a scoop. OVO Sound survives 2026, but it does not survive 2026 as the same company. What emerges on the other side of Q4, based on every conversation I have had and every document I have been able to review, is a dramatically compressed imprint. A skeleton crew focused almost entirely on Drake's own catalog. A marketing footprint that looks nothing like the OVO of 2019. A roster reduced to a handful of core acts, and a lifestyle expansion put on indefinite pause while the label figures out whether Drake is even staying at Universal for another contract cycle. That is not the death of a company.
But it is the death of the version of the company that everybody in the culture thought they were watching. It is the death of the empire phase. And what replaces the empire phase is a much smaller thing that will never have the gravitational pull the empire had. Meanwhile, on the pgLang side, the trajectory is the exact inverse. Every quarter, the org chart grows. Every quarter, the equity table gets more crowded with names that used to sit inside rival buildings. Every quarter, the projects get more ambitious. The NBA Players United rollout that we covered on this channel earlier this year was not a one-off. It was a pilot. It was pgLang running a test on a partnership model that they intend to replicate across every high-leverage vertical they can walk into. And every executive that walks in the pgLang door with a Rolodex from a competitor makes the next partnership easier to close. That is a compounding advantage. That is the thing nobody in the mainstream press is willing to say out loud yet, because saying it means declaring the beef over on terms that are more brutal than any diss track ever wrote. The beef ended when the generals started defecting. The beef ended when the equity started moving. The beef ended when the exit list got printed and started making its way through the industry. And the last honest voice on the OVO side is on sabbatical. Return TBD. So the next time someone in your group chat tells you Drake is fine, ask them a different question. Do not ask them about streaming numbers. Do not ask them about tour dates. Do not ask them about the next album cycle. Ask them who is still in the building. Ask them who signed off on the last 3 creative decisions. Ask them why the 15-line spreadsheet exists and why 3 of the rows are marked in red. Ask them why the senior creative director is on a leave with no return date. Because the beef was never just about who won the rap battle. The beef was about who was building infrastructure and who was building headlines. And right now, the infrastructure is walking out of one building and pooling into another. And the headlines, for what they are worth, are running behind the story by about 6 months. The full exit list is being cross-referenced against public LinkedIn changes by 2 separate reporters, one at a legacy trade publication and one at an independent outlet I trust with my sourcing. When those cross-references are done, and I expect that within the next few weeks, we come back to this channel with names, titles, and destinations. Not rumors, verified, documented, on the record. Until then, remember what I told you at the beginning. Rome did not fall in one afternoon. Rome fell when the generals started leaving the capital. And in the summer of 2026, the generals are leaving the OVO capital, and the empire that used to run hip-hop is bleeding out one signed exit agreement at a time. Subscribe to the channel and turn the bell on because this story just entered its 2nd act. And the 3rd act, based on everything I am seeing right now, is going to redraw the corporate map of hip-hop for the next decade. Drop a comment and tell me who you think the sabbatical name is. Tell me which of the 15 you think lands at pgLang next. Tell me whether you believe OVO survives 2026 as a real imprint or as a memory. Because the room where this is being decided is not the courthouse and it is not the recording studio. The room where this is being decided is the boardroom, and the boardroom right now has a Drake-shaped hole in the middle of it that nobody inside the building has figured out how to fill.
And here's the piece I want to make sure lands before you close this tab. Because there is a version of this story that gets told by the mainstream music press, and it goes something like this. Drake lost a beef. He lost a lawsuit.
He is having a rough 18 months. He will bounce back. He always bounces back. He has bounced back from every other career dip since 2015. He has money, he has catalog, he has a fan base that will follow him into a bunker if he asks them to. And none of that is going anywhere. That version of the story is not wrong, it is just incomplete. Because that version of the story treats Drake as a solo artist with a bad quarter. The reality is that Drake is a corporate entity whose executive team is walking out the door. And a corporate entity without an executive team is not a bouncing back operation. A corporate entity without an executive team is a name on a letterhead. And the OVO founder knows this. That is the piece nobody wants to say out loud. Drake has been in this business too long and has too many long-term relationships with the people whose names are on the spreadsheet to not know exactly what a 15-row exit list means. He has read this playbook before. He watched Cash Money go through it, he watched Bad Boy go through it, he watched Def Jam go through half a decade of it. And Drake knows, better than any journalist in the room, that when the middle management starts filing paperwork in the same fiscal quarter, the building is already deciding what its next chapter is going to look like without you. He is not stupid. He is watching the same document I am watching. He is doing the same math the people leaving are doing. The question is what Drake does about it. And I want to be careful here because I do not know Drake personally, and I do not have a source inside his own inner circle telling me what he is planning. What I do have is the pattern of behavior Drake has shown for the last 3 years, and that pattern says Drake does not retreat quietly. He escalates, he counterpunches, he finds the loudest possible response to the quietest possible problem, and then he lets the response become the story so that the problem never has to be discussed on its own terms. If that pattern holds, then the exit list is about to become the trigger for something bigger, a public statement, a new signing announcement, a surprise release, something engineered to reset the narrative and to distract from the fact that the infrastructure underneath the narrative is walking out. And every time Drake pulls that lever in the next 6 months, I want you to remember what we talked about in this video. The lever does not fix the exit list. The lever just changes what everybody is looking at while the exit list keeps getting longer. Because that is the thing about an evacuation. Once an evacuation starts, it does not stop when the loudest person in the room asks it to stop. An evacuation stops when the building is empty or when the fire is out. And right now, from where I am sitting with this document open on my desk, the fire is not out. The fire is still burning. And Drake, whether he wants to admit it publicly or not, is standing in the middle of the room asking the smoke to leave.